This is a review of the book Samuel Adams, Father of the American Revolution by Mark Puls. This is a book on the short side at around 230 pages. This is truly a great, well-written book about one of the most important people in America and maybe world history whom no one talks about. Samuel Adams was one of the most influential figures for the 15 years before the American Revolution started. He was a personally poor man who did not have a trade except for politics. He stayed poor his whole life and dedicated all his strength into getting the colonies to declare independence from Great Britain. Samuel Adams was the one who started the boycotts. As a matter, he invented it. The word boycott did not exist. It was called an importation agreement. He understood that people in power care about money and legally protesting and ensuring that the colonists' voices were heard. He did this using articles and communications with other like-minded people throughout the colonies. He was instrumental in getting the multiple acts of Parliament, such as the Townshend and Sugar Acts, repealed. He was a leader among the Sons of Liberty and coordinated the Boston Tea Party, which was the turning point where after that moment, reconciliation with Britain was impossible. It just wasn't clear to everyone except Adams. He wrote articles and framed the arguments the colonists would use, the arguments of individual rights, human rights, the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Many of his first arguments were used in the Declaration of Independence. He set the tone, framing, and political grassroots political efforts for the raising of a new nation. He stared down Britain and colonial officials demanding the removal of troops from America and the repeal of the Quartering Act. He started committees of correspondence, which proved as the greatest grassroots organization and movement ever established. He truly brought the 13 colonies together as one nation before it began as a nation. These committees laid the foundation for state governments when the colonies declared independence. He was a key figure in calling for the first Constitutional Convention, getting it agreed upon, and then, once there, for declaring independence, which was by no means a certainty going into the convention, as the vast majority would have supported reconciliation with England going into the convention, and Adams was advised to not even use the word independence. Patrick Henry said of the convention, "The good that was to come from these congresses was owing to the work of Samuel Adams." This was one of my favorite stories from the book. Governor Thomas Hutchinson had doubted that Samuel Adams' loyalty could be bought, but Gage wanted at least to extend an offer. He sent Colonel Finton, who commanded one of the newly arrived regiments, to Adams with a discreet message with promises of pecuniary rewards, as well as public advancement in advance for his cooperation. Among its perks, it was believed that Adams was offered a yearly salary of 2,000 guineas and a patent of nobility in the American peerage that England would establish. In making the offer, Fenton gave Adams some frank advice from General Gage. He should not provoke His Majesty King George III any further. Adams listened quietly and then responded, "Sir, I trust I have long since made my peace with the King of Kings. No personal consideration shall induce me to abandon the righteous cause of my country. Tell Governor Gage it is the advice of Samuel Adams to him no longer to insult the feelings of an exasperated people." He was the main person the British identified as the person to try to arrest and bring back to England for trial. He was one of the reasons the British went to Lexington and Concord, was to capture Samuel Adams and John Hancock. They were seen by the British as the reason for being there. Once independence was declared, he was a big advocate for bringing the French into the war to assist as well. He was somebody who knew the pulse of the people. He understood politically when to put on pressure and when to back off. He understood how to keep his ego under control and work behind the scenes to get things done. He elected George Washington as the head of the army, where he knew his friend John Hancock wanted the job, which is such a hard decision, but he knew that he needed to bring the colonies together, and he needed the revolution to be for all the colonies, not just New England. We would not be a country without Samuel Adams. He was poor his whole life. He did not care about fame or recognition. He mostly worked behind the scenes, willing to let others take the credit. He destroyed most of his writings and did not save anything for posterity. He cared about what God would think of him and doing the right thing for untold millions of people. He wanted to be free the same way he was and to preserve the freedom his ancestors had given him. His tactics were a masterclass in politics. He should be studied by everyone who wanted to go into or is interested in politics. We owe Samuel Adams our utmost gratitude and respect. This book tells that story in great detail, and I would highly recommend the read. I will end with a quote from John Adams. "Without the character of Samuel Adams, the true history of the American Revolution can never be written. For 50 years, his pen, his tongue, his activity were constantly exerted for the country without fee or reward. During that time, he was an almost incessant writer.